Your Washington Nationals can finally put a W in the books after they defeated the Braves 4-1 yesterday. But most importantly, Nationals fans, I think we have found our ace of this pitching staff. We're going to get to all of that and more right after this.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host, Ryan Clary, and I have taken my passion for this team into podcast form with the Locked On Podcast Network. And before we get into Mackenzie Gore, today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price, always guaranteed with my friends over on Game Time. And now we get into Mackenzie Gore, as let's just put it this way. I think the Nationals just got what they wanted, and this is exactly what the doctor ordered. Patrick Corbin gets hit around a little bit on opening day, but also I don't think that was all his fault. Josiah Gray on Saturday, which I'm going to get into in the 20-minute mark of this episode, got rocked around a lot as well, and we saw a lot of issues with him that have kind of come into this year. But again, it's only one start. We're going to get into that later. But today, right now, is about Mackenzie Gore and what we just witnessed with him. Listen, if the Nationals rotation is going to have any sort of success in 2023, then Mackenzie Gore will need to be lights out for this pitching staff. And I've said this time and time again. And honestly, in his Nationals debut, if you look at it and what he did, I think it was wildly impressive for someone who did kind of struggle down in spring training. You look at what he did just yesterday, finishing the day with 5 1/3 innings, 3 hits, 6 strikeouts, 4 walks, and 93 pitches with 56 strikes. I would like to see a little bit more strikes, but again, it's the first game of the year for him. I don't have too high of expectations for anyone who is making their first start. I don't care if it's Max Scherzer. Look at Jacob deGrom the other day. He got rocked around. It takes a little time for these guys to really get acclimated to the season, and especially with all these new rules and a faster pace, it's going to need some more time. But Mackenzie Gore was dominant, and he showed just what he could be for this Washington Nationals team down the line. And this is what we needed to see from him, as Gore was one of the main pieces of that Juan Soto and Josh Bell deal. It's important to see early returns from guys like that, because it just kind of reminds you what we're in for. Yes, we're not going to be the best team. We're not going to be winning 90 games this year. But also it's about development. And these guys, especially the ones in the majors, like C.J. Abrams, Mackenzie Gore, Josiah Gray, these are guys that we want to see returns from, and we want to see them early. Not to mention the fact that Mackenzie Gore was a top 10 pitching prospect in all of major leagues just last year. This is a legit prospect that the Nationals have. And honestly, just looking at the southpaw, I think there's no doubt in my mind that I'm willing to put my credibility on it and say Mackenzie Gore is the ace of this Washington Nationals staff, and I think he will be over the next 6 to 7 years. That's truly what I think of. When I look at Mackenzie Gore, it just reminds me of someone who is, one, confident out there. He's calm, he's cool, and he's collected. Yeah, Davies talked about how he's a little harder on himself, but I'd rather have him be a little bit harder on himself to correct the mistakes that he made in spring training. And again, it's only one start, but from that one start, from what we can see, in a day going against the Atlanta Braves lineup, a loaded lineup, some could even say the best in all of baseball, that's an impressive performance from anyone. And just to make it your debut with a team after not pitching in a regular season game since last July, That's what we wanted to see from him. And to see Gore come out and put his tough spring training to rest, I think is a real important part for this franchise and for this team. Because some people were a little worried. Myself, I wasn't too worried. I don't really care too much about spring training stats. I do look at it. I like to see where their fastball is, how hard they're throwing, and the velos and all of that. That part I do care about. But results in spring training, not so much. I care about results in the regular season, especially when it comes to younger pitching talent. And that's what we need to see from Mackenzie Gore and this staff moving forward. I truly believe what you saw yesterday from Gore is just scratching the surface of what he could be for this Nationals organization. I do believe that. I think Mackenzie Gore could even be potentially a top left-handed starter in all of baseball. That's how good this guy is. And I think he was kind of the oversawn talent from that trade return from Juan Soto, because you see guys like C.J. Abrams, James Wood, Robert Hassel, the flashier prospects. But then again, Mackenzie Gore is and certainly should be in that conversation for one of the better players in that return. Because don't mistake this. He was a main piece of that trade. If Mackenzie Gore is not in that package, the Nationals aren't going to take that trade. And that is the hard truth. Mackenzie Gore is that important to this Nationals organization and in that trade in particular. But enough about the trade. Let's get into what he did today, or just yesterday, in fact. What I liked a lot from Mackenzie Gore is that he stuck to his fastball. He threw 60 fastballs just yesterday. And honestly, at some point, he got away from his fastball a little bit, got into some trouble. Keibert Ruiz met with him at the right time, 2 runners on in that 4th inning. And then he got back to the fastball, got away from the slider, and started to pound the zone once again. He's not afraid. He is not afraid, and he is confident in that fastball. And I think that is his pitch that will take him a little far. But also to look at his slider that he threw 20 times yesterday, that thing was biting real hard, in fact. 20 times of it, throwing in the upper 80s. That is a tough pitch to hit for any hitter. It reminds me a lot of Patrick Corbin in the better part of Patrick Corbin, not the recent one. Then he also mixed in a curveball. He threw about 12 times yesterday. I thought that also had a lot of bite to it. And then his changeup, which only threw 1 time, but I think that could even be an effective pitch for him down the line. It's just something that he will need to work on and that he will need to develop. But it was just a nice in-between mix of his fastball and slider, but his fastball carried it all for me. That is what I saw, and there were only 3 batted balls yesterday that were over a 90 exit velo. He wasn't really getting hard contact off them. And that's stuff that we will be looking at all this year. Because like Josiah Gray the other day, people were getting hard contact off him. You saw a lot of exit velos in the high 90s, low hundreds. But with Mackenzie Gore yesterday, only 3 of those in your first start with the Washington Nationals against the Atlanta Braves, down 2-0 in the series to start the year, needing a win to really get this season going. That was a huge day for Mackenzie Gore and the Nationals. Because seriously, this is someone who, in my mind, is the expectation to be the ace. That is the expectation for Mackenzie Gore. And yes, it may be a lot of pressure. It may be. But I also don't think it's that crazy. Because that is the kind of prospect that he is. And I think he was just overlooked in that department, considering the Nationals got a ton of flashy guys in that return. But still, this is someone that you should not be taking lightly. Because I think he has the potential to be a 200 strikeout guy someday. And with that, he just needs to continue to pound the strike zone. And one thing I want to see more of him is to continue to use that fastball. Something that I believe is his bread and butter pitch that is going to get him to that 200 strikeout range someday. I'm not saying it's going to happen this year because who knows? First full season in the majors. Will he be healthy? Who knows? We can't predict that. But from what I saw just yesterday, there is no doubt in my mind that we have seen the 2023 and beyond ace for the Washington Nationals, and that is Mackenzie Gore. So Nationals fans, we talk about what is there to be excited about. Every 5 days, you get to see Mackenzie Gore. Not only that, Josiah Gray even. We're going to talk about Josiah Gray later in this show, but you know what day it is? It's Monday, and that means we have to get to a national stock report as we're going to wrap up the first series, highlight who did well and who improved their stock, and we're also going to highlight who did not improve their stock and who needs to step it up a little bit. But again, it's only through 3 games, so no one's going to be hit hard against. We're going to be optimistic for now because it's the beginning of the season. But before we get into that national stock report, I have to tell you guys about my friends over at Ultimate Baseball GM. As guys, Pro Baseball GM is the coolest game I've played in a long time, and I've always thought I could be a great Major League GM. As it turns out, it's not all that easy. If you've had the same thought and have fantasized about managing your own franchise, go and download Pro Baseball GM immediately. The game allows you to manage every strategic aspect of a franchise, playing through seasons and leading your franchise and fans to glory as you build a historic dynasty and simulation you're responsible for. You get to hire the coaching staff, scouts, drafting players, navigating your franchise through free agency, and all that fun stuff that Mike Rizzo and the Nationals get to do. And again, guys, Locked On Baseball hosts are in a competition, and I have to say, I've already been fired. I thought I was a good GM, but apparently not. So find out for yourself. Locked On Nationals listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit probaseballgm.com, scan the code, or look it up in the app stores. That's probaseballgm.com, Ultimate Baseball GM. Guys, you can start your dynasty today. And now to get into the Washington Nationals stock report, as we always start out on a good note. And today, I am happy to say Victor Robles stock through the roof. Victor Robles has been off to a hot start through 3 games for the Washington Nationals, and his first 2 games were electric. Now, yesterday he went 0 for 3, but again, no big deal. Because this is what we need to see from Victor Robles, someone who has drawn 3 walks through 3 games. He had 2 walks on opening day, drew a third walk in that second game, but has also had 2 hits. And he's right now 286 to the 500 OBP. He's not slugging for anything. It's 2 singles. But again, guys, what have we talked about with Victor Robles? He needs to be more selective when swinging at pitches. You saw him lay off a ton of breaking balls in these first 3 games. And again, it's only 3 games. I'm not going to get overworked about it, but I'm going to give him his roses because I've been hard on him. We've all been hard on him. But we need to see this from Robles, because if Robles can pan out and turn into what everyone thought he would be after 2019, again, I'll say it. If Victor Robles was good, the Nationals wouldn't be in a rebuild right now. I truly do believe that. And so, Victor Robles, if you're going to turn around, the time is now. We're going to be welcoming you because he plays as Gold Glove defensive outfield. And by the way, that catch on opening day, how sick was that? SportsCenter top 10 on the first game. One of the better catches of the weekend. Besides that one the Angels outfielder made. But again, regardless, Victor Robles, stock up. That is what we needed to see from the former top prospect, because he's an important one for this Nationals franchise. A very important one, in fact, some would say. But now we do have to get to a stock down for C.J. Abrams. C.J. Abrams, I'm not concerned. But I have to call a ball a ball. And so far, you're 0 for 7 through your first 3 games. I need you to get a hit. I need you to get on base. I need you to draw a walk. Here's what I will say. He's had some solid contact. In fact, one of the games, I believe on opening day, he had 3 balls that were batted 90 plus miles per hour off the bat for exit velocity. He's hitting the ball hard. He's just going to need to find some holes, and not to mention those 3 errors. And really, it could have been a 4th one if we're talking about game 2. It was ruled a hit, but when you're a stout defender the way that C.J. Abrams is, I expect you to make that play. It was ruled a hit, but again, major leaguers make that play. Above average major league shortstops make that play. And I do believe that Victor Robles, C.J. Abrams is that guy, especially on the defensive side of things. So I just need him to tighten up, find his swing at the plate, and just nail down over at shortstop because we know what he can do. I'm not concerned at all about what he can and can't do. I know he's a strong defender. If he comes out and starts booting baseballs all season long, maybe I'll be concerned. But for now, I'm not concerned. You saw Ian Desmond early on in seasons boot the ball every other day. It's going to happen. They settle into the season. Those plays start to become routine. And also, he's getting adjusted to Nationals Park. A lot of people like to look past these things. But the grass and the way the ball bounces is different in West Palm Beach than it is up at Nationals Park. He will get adjusted. He'll get acclimated to what the Nationals want him to do, where he wants to play them, and it'll be just fine. But for now, a stock down for C.J. Abrams, as it wasn't a great opening weekend for that guy. But hey, stock up for Jeimer Candelario's defense. At the plate, I'm not going to talk about that for now. Positive. We're positive. Jeimer Candelario, we were told, was not a very good defensive third baseman. Well, Jeimer Candelario has been probably the Nationals' best fielder so far in this season outside of Victor Robles, and I do mean that. Jeimer has played a very solid third base, and what he did yesterday with the ball coming to his glove side, kind of laying out for it, getting up on his feet, throwing a dart over to first base, that's something we haven't seen since, I don't know who, Anthony Rendon in 2019? I'm not saying he's a defensive gold glover like the way Rendon is, but to say the least, we were told this guy wasn't that good of a fielder. Well, he's been holding it down over at third base, and I've liked what I've seen from him. He's making a lot of plays look easy. He looks like a natural over at third base. So, for now, he's proven me wrong. Because I did not expect that defensive effort from Candelario, but we're here now. You see it, and we kind of like it. So, now we have to get to a stock report up once again, and that is Mr. Moneybags himself, the franchise catcher, Keibert Ruiz. Keibert Ruiz, man, we're starting to see it. We are starting to see what he can be at the major league level, starting off with 4 hits in his 10 at-bats. He's got a home run. He's got multiple RBIs. And the big thing about this was that triple-decker home run that he hit in Game 2. I've talked about it with Keibert Ruiz. I need to see more power because that's what we were promised. But he's a 24-year-old turning 25 this July. It's going to start clicking. And it seems to be he has kind of gotten back down to the meat and potatoes of hitting a baseball. He's gotten back down to the basics, and that's what he needed, I believe. I believe that he just needed to get his confidence up, and I believe this hot start is going to really transition into a solid hitting effort in 2023, and he's going to prove everyone right on why he should have signed that extension. I truly believe this is a franchise catcher. Now, to look at the defensive side of things, he's in the same category as C.J. Abrams. I expect stout defensive effort from Keibert Ruiz. He's been solid behind the plate. He let one go the other day that I think should have been his, but nevertheless, I'm still liking what I'm seeing. I'm not worried about his defensive side of things. I need to see it up at the plate. And so far, he's got a 1,300 OPS. I'll take that. I think I'll take that. Right? So now, Another stock report up, as we got to talk about this guy, Mackenzie Gore. Stock report up. I talked about him in that opening segment. I just couldn't leave him out a second time. I can't talk enough about this guy and what he means for this organization moving forward. But next, I have a stock report down for Josiah Gray. We're going to talk about Josiah Gray here over the next few minutes because what we did see from him is a little concerning, but how concerning is it for this Nationals team? I'm going to answer that, but before we do that, I got to tell you guys about my friends over at Built Bar. And the Built March Madness bracket is here. We know you have a favorite bar or puff, and now's your favorite time to make it count. Go to BuiltMarchMadness.com to vote for your favorites. You know I'll be voting for Coconut Puffs bar. And guys, if you want the Nationals to win, you'll be voting for that bar too. Support your team, support your bar, and puff. And when you vote for your favorite bar or puff, you will be entered into a drawing where 50 lucky Locked On listeners will get a free box of Built. Not only that, but Locked On fans will they'll be getting a 12-month subscription to Built to have Built's best bars or puffs delivered monthly straight to your door. You got to try Built. Built is the best protein bar ever. Seriously, they're amazing, and you won't even think they're good for you, but they are. What makes Built bars and puffs so good? Well, for starters, they're all high in protein, low in sugar, and covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. Run to BuiltMarchMadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff and pick up a box while you're there. You can vote every day, so hop in and support your pick at BuiltBars.com. And now we get into Josiah Gray, as it wasn't the best pitching performance we have seen from Josiah Gray. He led the major leagues in all of baseball in home runs given up last year. We saw him have a very solid spring training, have a .75 ERA, and was dominant, was the Nationals' best pitcher, and was one of the better pitchers in all of the Grapefruit League just this past month. I know I don't talk about spring training success, but I'd be lying if I wasn't a little giddy about him coming out of spring training. I thought this was going to be the day that we saw Josiah Gray assert his dominance, but ultimately it wasn't. So now, should Nationals fans be worried about him giving up 3 home runs in his first start? Nah, I don't think so. And I will say, it's not what we wanted to see. But guys, I also think we need to take these expectations down for Josiah Gray. I think Josiah Gray is a hell of a talent and a hell of a pitcher. But I don't think he's an ace. I don't think he's a 1 or maybe not even a 2. If Josiah Gray is a 3, I think that is a perfect scenario because you have someone like a Cade Cavalli, and who knows who the Nationals will draft this first round, the number 2 overall pick this year. There's a couple of pitchers out of college that are looking pretty interesting right now. We don't need Josiah Gray to be the ace or the number 2 or hell, even the number 3. We need him to be a competitive major league pitcher at this point. But giving up 3 home runs in your debut, finishing with 7 hits and 5 earned runs, 2 walks and only 4 strikeouts in 5 innings is not what you want to see. But this is how close he is. Only giving up 7 hits in those 5 innings, that's a stretch. 3 home runs were of those 7 hits. He's not that far off. He has an issue with missing with 1 pitch. Those 3 home runs are 3 pitches out of the 85 pitches that he threw yesterday? So with that, when he misses, he misses. Matt Olson adding 2 home runs, a lefty bat, and then, of course, Ronald Acuna. Those are 2 heavy-hitting sluggers. I'm not going to be too concerned over it yet, but I also think we should take down the expectations a tad for Josiah Gray. He's a solid pitcher. He's still going to be one. I have all the faith in the world in him being a very good middle-of-the-rotation guy. In fact, if he is that, And I think every Nationals fan should be excited about that because that part is a huge factor in what this team needs to do moving forward. Besides, when you have them in control, in team control over the next few years, that's also value added to the organization. So don't be too concerned about Josiah Gray. Yes, he did give up 3 home runs. It's not what we wanted to see. But also, he's got a lot more starts from that. And what we have seen over the years from him, he doesn't get hurt. So he's going to keep on going out there every 5 days. He's going to take the ball. You're going to see a lot of ups from him. I do believe that. We just need to stop the long ball because that is what kills him in these starts. If he can just eliminate some of these home runs, then we could start talking about Josiah Gray being a number 2 starter for the Washington Nationals on a good Washington Nationals team. But thank you for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every day. Now check out my guys, Matt and Dom, as they bring you the best fantasy draft strategies, and find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you get your pods and on YouTube. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network where you get your team every single day. Guys, thank you again for tuning in. Baseball is back in Washington, D.C., and I've got you covered here on Locked On Nationals where you get your team every single day. Go Nats.